The historic River Rhine. For 2,000 years, this legendary river has played a vital role in the lives of its people. From Switzerland, along the border of France, across Germany, through the Netherlands into the North Sea, down the 700 miles of its navigable length, flows much of the goods and produce of Europe's most populous regions. The main workhorse of the waterway is the barge. Several of these are often linked together to form a compact unit, propelled by a powerful tug attached at the rear. Here, the tug Brown Coal picks up a unit of 2 coal barges near Cologne, Germany, and will take them to Karlsruhe, about 150 miles upriver. Moving day and night, the journey will take 2 days. The Brown Coal is a powerful new tug, equipped with the latest navigational aids. Her 2 850 horsepower diesel engines can move her heavy loads against the strongest currents. During the night, a tanker pulls alongside the moving Brown Coal to replenish her supply of fuel and lubricating oil. By dawn, the Brown Coal has reached the city of Neuwied. Visibility is good, so there's no further need for radar.
Die Sachen hinten weg.
At 7 a.m., the Brown Coal and her barges are in Koblenz, at the junction of the Rhine, the Moselle, and the Lahn. This ancient city was first built by the Romans, who called it Confluentes, guarding this vital river crossroad.
Hallo. Hier Koblenz Radio, bitte kommen. Hallo, yes.
At Bapard, it's time to change crews, and the captain of the next watch takes over the controls.
Heute Morgen hatte man beinahe Nebel, den haben wir mit.
Da, alles klar dann?
Ja, alles da.
Oh, okay. Maschine haben wir auch so?
Alles da.
Ja.
It's time, too, for the Bertha to tie up alongside. The Bertha is a floating general store, and the cook and crew find shopping a pleasant break from the day's routine.
Langsam, steh mit dir. Der andere kann abbrechen mit dir. Säure da. Drei, gib mir dreimal.
Was? Oder?
Ja, denkst du? Bitte hier, das Ding. Und das schon, und das haben wir
Ja,
gern.
dann muss er gehen mit zu gehen.
Geh hier mit. Jetzt bist du deine Familie wieder los, nicht?
Near the old castle perched above Zangoar, a pilot comes aboard to take the Broncoal and her barges through the Narrows by Lorelei's Rock.
Guten Morgen.
Moin.
In German legend, Lorelei is an irresistible siren who sits on this high cliff and lures boatmen to destruction on the rocks below with her wild melodies. In less than an hour, passage through the dangerous Narrows is safely completed, and the pilot disembarks. Now there is clear sailing ahead, and the crew can have lunch.
Mahlzeit, Captain. Guten Appetit. Mahlzeit.
In the early afternoon at Cobb, another pilot comes on board. This time he'll take over through the Bingen Gorge, fastest water along this part of the Rhine. The banks of the river are dotted with old castles and forts, reminders of a long and turbulent history. Above the gorge, a dredge is anchored in mid-river, breaking up underwater rock and deepening the riverbed. By 7 p.m., the Broncoal and her cargo have reached Mainz. Final destination, Karlsruhe, is still 17 hours away, but the Rhine from here on is wide and calm, and the rest of the journey will be clear sailing.
Koblenz Radio, bitte kommen. Ja, guten Tag, Fräulein. Hier ist die DA 5097, Braunkohle 1, zu Berg am Kilometer 527. Und ich hätte gern in Mainz die 51.
One of the greatest natural routeways in the world is provided by the River Rhine, which flows from the mountains of Central Europe to the North Sea. The river can be divided into 4 parts. The first from its source to Basel. The second from Basel to Bingen. The third from Bingen to Bonn. And the last section from Bonn to its mouth at Rotterdam and Europoort. Let's look at the first section. Rising in the Alps, the river flows into Lake Constance, then westward through Schaffhausen to the Swiss port of Basel. The snowfields and glaciers of the Swiss Alps are the source of the river, which flows first of all as a shallow rushing torrent of clear ice-cold water over a boulder-strewn bed. Flowing northwards through a steep-sided alpine valley, the Rhine becomes a deeper, smooth-flowing stream and enters Lake Constance. From the western end of the lake, the river continues its course, interrupted by falls such as those at Schaffhausen. To make use of the power provided by the rushing water, several hydroelectric stations have been built in this stretch of the river. At Basel, the river becomes navigable for large barges, which come over 500 miles upstream to this important inland port. Petroleum, especially, is brought all the way from refineries in Rotterdam. Many of Switzerland's bulk imports are brought into the country in this way. For example, coal from the Ruhr, grain imported from overseas, sacks of flour, and crated goods of many kinds. Here in Basel, you can see barges from many different places. Whole families live on these barges. Some even carry their cars on board. Downstream from Basel, the river turns northwards, and we now enter the second section, from Basel to Bingen. Here the river flows through a broad rift valley between the Vosges and the Black Forest. It is joined by the river Neckar at the twin ports of Ludwigshafen, Mannheim, and by the river Main at Mainz. A canal has been built to speed up the traffic as far north as the French port of Strasbourg. This is linked with the river Rhone in France. From Strasbourg, another canal connects the waterway with Paris via the river Marne. In the fertile soil of the Rift Valley, a variety of crops is grown, such as maize and root crops. Grain is extensively grown on the French side of the valley, together with tobacco. On the foothills of the Vosges Mountains, facing southeast, there are extensive vineyards which produce the well-known wines of Alsace. Through this wide rift valley, the Rhine flows northwards, lined by belts of trees on either bank. Travelling downstream, we pass heavily laden barges and tankers, ploughing upstream to Basel against the current. The canal between Basel and Strasbourg has been built in sections alongside the river to make the route shorter and easier for upstream traffic. Because of the fall in altitude, there are several locks to enable the barges to proceed from one section to the next. Here again, the fall of water between the sections is used to generate electricity in power stations which have been built alongside the lock installations. Soon we come to the outskirts of Strasbourg, the first busy port downstream from Basel. Here, the Rhine Canal is joined by the canal linking Strasbourg with the Paris basin. And a final lock connects with the main river. Travelling downstream, back on the Rhine itself, we pass oil storage tanks to the north of Strasbourg. And pusher tugs taking lighters northwards to the Ruhr in Germany. The next big port is Mannheim, an important rail junction and a centre of heavy industry. On the west bank is Mannheim's twin town of Ludwigshafen, with its vast chemical factories. Just beyond Ludwigshafen-Mannheim, the Rhine is joined by the river Neckar, flowing in from the southeast. Further north, at Mainz, it is joined by its largest tributary, the river Main. Barges travel up this tributary to Frankfurt and beyond. Downstream from Mainz, the river turns westwards, past the south-facing scarp slope of the Taunus highlands. Covered with vineyards, this district is known as the Rheingau. At Bingen, the river bends northwest, and we come to the third section, from Bingen to Bonn. In this section, the Rhine is joined by the rivers Mosel and Lahn, at the confluence town of Koblenz. The three rivers have cut the highland into 4 parts. The valley so formed between Bingen and Bonn is therefore a narrow gorge. Looking northwards and downstream from above Bingen, we can see how narrow this gorge is. It is cut into the almost flat-topped plateau of the Rhine highlands. In this section, the current is very strong, and craft travelling upstream make slow progress. The gorge is very winding. Where valley slopes face south, they are terraced with vineyards. Where they face north, they are covered with woodland. As the gorge is so narrow, towns are small and compact. Some have castles perched high on the valley sides. The gorge is at its narrowest at the Lorelei, an outcrop of rock at a dangerous bend in the river. Main roads and railways on each side of the river run close to the water's edge. Barges travelling upstream through the gorge carry a great variety of cargoes. Refined petroleum, coal from the Ruhr, brown coal from near Köln, imported hardwoods, gravel for making concrete, and crated manufactured goods of many kinds. This section of the river is very popular with tourists who go sightseeing on passenger vessels. At Koblenz, the Rhine is joined by the canalized river Mosel, flowing in from the west. Downstream from Koblenz, the valley becomes wider. Now we enter the fourth and last section of the river. North of the Saarland is the plain of the lower Rhine. Here the river is joined by the river Ruhr, around which has been built up the biggest industrial area of Western Europe. Stretching northwards from the city of Köln to the large port of Duisburg-Ruhrort. Beyond this lies the flat, fertile land of the Netherlands. Beyond Bonn, we enter lowland country, passing more laden barges towed astern. And, for the first time, small ocean-going vessels, which have come over 200 miles upstream. Soon we come to Köln, with its great cathedral. Close by is the largest railway bridge across the Rhine in Germany. Köln is a main crossing point of the river, where routes from east and west converge. To the west, smoke marks the site of the industries of the brown coal, or lignite field. Much reconstruction has taken place in Köln. On either side of the river, large new housing estates have been built. Now we come to the industrial town of Duisburg, where the Rhine is joined by the river Ruhr, flowing in from the east. Duisburg is part of the region of heavy industry centered around the Ruhr coal field with its many factories. Imported iron ore brought upstream from Rotterdam, together with scrap iron brought downstream from towns as far away as Basel, is made into steel. The finished products are loaded into barges and together with Ruhr coal are sent downstream to the port of Rotterdam. Just north of Duisburg is an area of rich farmland which produces a great deal of good grain. Further downstream, there is more barge traffic than on any other stretch of the river. Soon we enter Holland, where dairy cattle graze on pasture land bordering the river, which is diked on either side. This is to stop the river flooding the farmland beyond, which is at a lower level. In addition to dairy farming, fruit growing is important in this part of Holland. Now we near the end of our journey as we approach the great port of Rotterdam with its well-known. Here the river barges meet ocean-going liners and cargo ships, from which imports for the Rhineland are unloaded. So busy is this seaport that floating elevators are used to discharge many cargoes, such as grain from ship to barge in midstream. Crude oil brought in by ocean tanker is one of the main imports. There are several refineries with great storage tanks for the petroleum produced, whilst byproducts are processed in chemical works nearby. As we have seen, the refined petroleum is taken upstream as far as Basel. Other barges bring goods for export, coal from the Ruhr, and manufactured goods of many kinds. At the mouth of the Rhine, on a large area of land reclaimed from the sea, Europort is being built to handle bulk cargoes for Western Europe. Here are more refineries, with deep water quays for larger tankers. Past such incoming tankers, ships carrying exports from the Rhineland pass out to the open sea.